how local hospitals and facilities, not to mention people there, are managing. Under an economic blockade for 18 months before this latest military assault, 80% of Gaza's 1.5 million residents, over half of whom are under 15, were already relying on outside sources of food and water before the assault began. Now, at least a third of Gaza is without electricity. It's probably more. Sewage is said to be running through streets because the sewage system's been bombed, and the humanitarian crisis has been described by the head of the UN Refugee Association as catastrophic. To bring us the latest from their friends and family and what they're hearing through their networks, we have in studio three folks. Lubna Hamad is a Palestinian lawyer, human rights activist, and founding member of Adla, New York, the Coalition for Justice in the Middle East. We'll hear more about that in just a minute. Adam Shapiro is American co-founder of the International Solidarity Movement and a filmmaker, most recently of the documentary Chronicles of a Refugee. Also with us, Courtney Sheets, a filmmaker who, back in August, participated in the first effort to bring in a shipment of aid to Gaza by sea, sponsored by the Free Gaza movement. Well, welcome all of you. Lubna and Adam, you got to hear our interview with Rashid Khalidi. Let's start with you, Lubna. Anything you would add to the sort of analysis that Rashid put out there, in particular, perhaps the roots of this crisis?
Well, I think he described the roots pretty well. It all goes back to 1947 and 1948 and the years before that, leading to the establishment of the State of Israel.
Funnily enough, not where the CNN reports tend to begin.
No, as one would expect, right? What I would add to what Professor Khalidi mentioned is that I would also give Israel a golden star for its PR work, but it's been exposed in the British media and also on the internet, how they shoot and videotape some incidents, and the IDF, the Israeli army, goes around showing them as attacks on rocket launch stages,
launch sites, yeah.
Yeah, and it would turn out that it's just a family of 8 children and his an 80-year-old grandmother who were just trying to find a living.
So you're saying that courtesy of the independent media and also international media, we're actually being able to see some of the reality in a way that we might not have been otherwise.
Also courtesy of the Israeli human rights organization, B'Tselem, that exposed this in the first place.
Adam, to you, how are you getting your information about what's going on there? You've got a lot of colleagues there, of course.
So we have a lot of friends and colleagues in Gaza that we're trying to stay in touch with as we can. Of course, now reports of that communications, the telecommunications in Gaza are being cut and of course destroyed, and so the Palestinian telecommunications engineers are working to keep that live and keep it going, but of course with the electricity, which has long been a problem in Gaza because of what Israel's doing, it's getting increasingly hard. And one of the things I think that we should really be concerned about and looking forward as this this war on Gaza continues, is that it could be possible that Israel can cut all communications, not just preventing journalists from entering and not just allowing the world to see directly what's happening, but even to prevent Gazans from reaching out. I mean, although Professor Khalidi pointed out the Israeli efforts, nonetheless the people of Gaza are speaking out. They are trying to reach out those who can, and those of us around the world are trying to get their voices heard. I would also just add one further point to what Professor Khalidi said, which is that one other area where I think Israel, to some extent, is successful, and something we have to constantly work to combat, is that it has been able to separate, in the consciousness even of the world, the West Bank from the Gaza Strip. We're talking now only about Gaza, and this is furthering to not just split the Palestinians, but to split our concerns and our efforts and our work to helping the Palestinian people wherever they are achieve their rights. And it's not just that nothing's happening in the West Bank right now, just because all of the focus and attention is on Gaza.
A lot of people would say, but the Palestinians are split. You've got the Palestinian Authority governing the West Bank, and you've got Hamas elected leadership in Gaza.
And certainly Palestinians are entitled to their political opinions and preferences, but this is also a result of the policies that Israel has conducted for over 40 years.
How so?
Separating occupying the West Bank and Gaza, keeping them isolated and separate from each other, keeping Palestinians isolated and separate from each other, not just those in the West Bank and Gaza, but also Jerusalemites, Palestinians who live inside Israel itself in the 1948 lands, and then, of course, Palestinian refugees around the region. Keep dividing the Palestinian people into smaller and smaller pieces, and even today, right now, Gaza is divided into three.
What difference does it make that this is cast as an attack on Hamas? Kind of like the assault on Lebanon was cast as an attack on Hezbollah. Is what's happening in Gaza right now, Lubna, an attack on Hamas?
I certainly think not. I think it's an attack on the Palestinian people. And as Adam said, while most of the attention now is focused on Gaza, there's a lot going on in the West Bank. There's a lot of killing, there's a lot of arrests, there's a lot of house demolitions, there's a lot of tree uprooting that's going on in Hebron, in Bilain, in Jayus, land confiscation, more settlements being built. So it's an all-out war against the civilian population. They're using Hamas as an excuse, just like they used Hezbollah in 2006 as an excuse to attack. I mean, they provoked this war. They literally did provoke it, as Professor Khalidi pointed. The numbers of rockets was down to 1 or 2 a week, and then they went in and attacked. But
you talked about the Israeli assault of November 4th.
Yes.
Claiming lives and then causing an increase or resulting in an increase in rocket fire.
But not only that, even before that, again, going back, it's always going a step back and seeing the whole situation. Adam said that they've been undermining, they've been interfering and oppressing the Palestinian people. But even if you just take it as recent as 3 years ago, in 2006, in January, when the Palestinians chose freely in the first free and fair elections in their modern history, they chose Hamas to lead, to govern, and then Israel and the U.S. and the Quartet, including the UN and the rest of the world, totally undermined the outcome of these free elections, just to serve the purposes of the Israeli, not to serve the purposes of the Palestinian people. This is what the Palestinian people wanted. They said their word, and then no one listened.
And what difference did that make for the